Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Is Secure Access Service Edge Right for Your Organization? A technical deep dive with Cato Networks. We're very happy that you are taking some time to spend with us today to talk about network security and specifically the Cato Networks SASE solution. Here's a brief agenda of our presentation today. We're going to start with some introductions of our speakers. And we'll talk about some of the challenges that organizations face today regarding network infrastructure and security. And then we'll talk about how Cato Networks SASE solution solves those problems. And then we will quickly jump into a live demonstration of the Cato Networks SASE solution and wrap up with a few Q&As, questions and answers for as long as time allows. So I'm very happy to introduce our speakers today. We've got with us Con Tran, Regional Sales Director of Cato Networks, and Paul Van Lierop, Channel Sales Engineer from Cato Networks, both extremely knowledgeable in the world of network security and SASE, and specifically the Cato solution. And so we're very, very happy and honored to have them with us today. Before we jump in, I wanted to do just a brief introduction of our two companies. For over 25 years, Instant InfoSystems has helped companies leverage the power of the cloud to manage their critical voice, fax, and data infrastructures. And we've done that with a full spectrum of technical services and consultative guidance. But Instant InfoSystems is also a vendor-neutral solution provider. And what that means is we've got access to the industry's best-of-breed solutions to make informed and unbiased recommendations to our customers. And that's really where Cato Networks comes in. So Cato is a leading provider of network security solutions and the first SASE platform. And we are very excited to be partnered with Cato and have them with us today to talk about their SASE platform and provide an in-depth demo of how it works. So without any further delay, I'd like to turn it over to Con, and he can give us the full overview of Cato Networks and their SASE solution. So Con, over to you.
Thanks, Julie. Well, hi, everybody. My name is Con Tran. I am the Regional Sales Director here for Cato Networks. Over the next couple of slides here, before I hand it off to Paul, I'll just be talking a little bit about some of the pains and challenges that organizations meet when it comes to networking security and how Cato can help. Next slide, please. Let's first start off with some of the common conversations we're having with IT leaders that we meet. Going anywhere from cost to complexity to performance and visibility. Most organizations today are on traditional MPLS networks, which is cumbersome to manage as well as does not provide the capabilities for cloud optimization, and is very expensive to maintain. It's a legacy-based technology that provides primarily just connectivity and access. Moving on to complexity, we've all seen it. There's a lot of great tools out there we use day to day to manage your business, to provide visibility into your environment. The challenge with that is that it's getting too much in regards to network and security policies and controls. There's just too many boxes, too many models to upkeep, to manage, to replace in regards to complexity. From a remote work or work from home and performance, we all have remote users. I'm a remote user myself that we have to manage and make sure they have access to all the applications they need reliably to perform their job functions. But it's a challenge. How do you provide them low latency, streamlined access to applications, especially when it comes to UCaaS or VoIP or video streaming from home? So that's an area of risk when it comes to experience. One topic that everybody talks about is, when or how or where do I even start when I start migrating my applications to the cloud? There's a lot of risks moving to the cloud, from complexity to cost, but to making sure that we get access to those applications to do it easily, but to do also securely. One thing I'd like to talk about here is visibility, and which is one area we don't really think about when it comes to shadow IT, which is we have mandated applications that organizations provide to their users. But what about the applications that the users are accessing without our knowledge, right? Shadow IT is a big concern for organizations. The challenge with that is unless you see it, unless you know that it's happening, how do you address it? Next slide. So if you look at a traditional technology stack within an organization, you've got data centers, a branch headquarters. You could be using MPLS. You might have invested in an SD-WAN solution for connectivity. You've invested in a point solution for cloud acceleration, right, to optimize cloud access. Then also another tools and other products for cloud security to protect that access. On the branch side, you've probably deployed edge devices that you're managing and maintaining to provide global connectivity to other sites across the world. You've definitely invested in network security for local and web access, and also VPN technologies to provide remote access and remote protection for your mobile users. Okay. The challenge with this is that it's complex to manage and it's exploding with just point solutions from left to right. Next slide. So how does Cato really help in that scenario? Where our vision when it comes to networking security, if I had to sum it up in one word, is really convergence. It's not about replacing the tools that you have, it's about consolidating the capabilities into a single platform. So going from left to right, we could talk a little bit about optimized access. So replacing or bringing in an SD-WAN solution to connect all your sites, aggregate all your bandwidth, and replace those expensive point-to-point solutions and replacing MPLS onto a more reliable cloud platform. Later on top of that is firewall as a service. You have firewalls today at the edge, at your headquarters, great technology, most likely they're appliance-based, but firewall as a service moves that connection and that protection into the cloud that still allows you to segment access across all of your edges, whether it be an office, a virtual data center, an actual data center, and your remote users. The benefit to you here is that you provide better capabilities for performance, but you're eliminating the cost of traditional legacy-based appliances that you'll have to refresh every couple of years. Okay. Another layer on top of firewall as a service is SSE, which is a more advanced security. So think about Cloud Access Security Broker or DLP, how we monitor IT applications or applications that are in the shadow. How do you control SaaS application and provide granularity where you can provide users with access, but you can also prevent data leakage outside your organization. Okay. From a remote user and how do you protect remote users, we have Zero Trust, ZTNA, here to replace your traditional VPN appliances or your VPN concentrators. A firewall-based VPN with ZTNA that is cloud delivered, that is also SSO enabled, enabling your organization to provide cloud access, data center access, access for SaaS applications for remote users, but also maybe contractors or users that particularly aren't managed by your organization, but need access to internal applications. Next slide. Last slide here, we're going to talk a little bit about our global reach. So where does Cato Services extend its capabilities? We are a global organization. As you can see on this slide here, we are primarily in all the metro areas. We have over 75 points of presence throughout the world. What's nice about this slide here is these are not just access points, these are actually compute centers. So every single one of these dots is a Cato compute center that your office, your data center, your user will get access to based on wherever they're at all over the world. Okay. Next slide. From here, I'm going to pass it off to Paul to go ahead and deep dive into the actual product itself.
All right, let's get into it a little bit. I'm Paul Van Lierop. I'm the channel sales engineer. My role here is to help our channel partners and perform technical enablement. I've been in the networking and security world for quite some time with big companies that you all know and love in the IT world. But I'm happy to be here talking about Cato. And today we'll do an overview of the Cato management application, and that's everything that you need to do in the Cato environment, whether that's configuration, whether that's looking at analytics and operational data, ongoing running of your system overall. And really, that term single pane of glass for once in my technical career, we actually live up to that moniker, right? So literally everything that you're going to do is right here in the CMA or Cato management application. I don't have to pivot to other interfaces or other aspects of devices. I'm doing it all right here for one place. So hopefully the theme that you hear as we go through, we look at a networking and a security stack that are converge, and then at all times you'll see how easy and straightforward it is to configure, maintain, and leverage the power of the Cato SASE cloud, a true native cloud solution, right? So the first thing that we see is our topology. And this is showing everything that's connected to the Cato SASE cloud. This is, if you're a Harry Potter fan, you're in luck. If you're not, well, just bear with me. But you'll see that I have got a whole host of sites connected, and I also have a remote user that's connected, just one in this use case. But those remote users are first-class citizens as part of our environment. So the things that I can do from network optimization, all of the advanced threat prevention capabilities of our security stack map equally to those remote users as they do physical sites or cloud sites, as the case may be. So what we're looking at is I have a collection of different sites in here overall, and let's say Gringotts, for instance, this is a what we call a virtual socket or a vSocket. This is our virtual appliance that runs in the cloud. This one is running in AWS London, and you can see that our round trip time from there is 2 milliseconds, right? So we are co-located in the same carrier hotels and exchange points that the cloud titans and the SaaS providers are. They give you optimized access to not only your cloud infrastructure, but those SaaS apps that you want to take advantage of. We could also look at my physical site here, which is Hogwarts. This is set up as a high availability pair of sockets. Again, the socket is what we call our physical appliance that lets you connect in. And then I could also connect in if I had, say, an IPsec tunnel that I wanted to build into this environment. I could do that as well, right? So I have multiple, I bring in my edges, whatever they might be, whether that's something leveraging our SD-WAN capabilities with a socket or a vSocket, or whether that's leveraging routing infrastructure or firewalls that I already have, or even another SD-WAN vendor that I can tie in an SSE manner and take advantage of all of this functionality. And in all parts of things that we do, I'm going to auto connect into the point of presence that's nearest to my location. So in my case, I'm out of Bozeman, Montana. I'm kind of equidistant between Portland, Seattle, Denver. So depending on how my internet provider is going, I may connect to one or the other overall. If you're not in Montana like me, and you'd probably be closer to a POP location overall. But that happens seamlessly as part of the solution. Right. So when I'm traveling for training or whatever use case there, I'll automatically connect into my nearest POP. Like when I was in LA last week, that's where I'm going to automatically connect in. But at the same time, I'm still taking advantage of this global networking and security policy. Right. So not to belabor the topology too much, let's get into a little bit more of the solution. From the networking side, I have the ability to very easily configure a new site. Let's say we're calling this 12 Grimold Place, for instance, right? I can choose my connection type. Again, I have two hardware device types from Cato, the X1500 or the X1700. By the way, we have plenty of stock of those for years, so no supply chain problems with Cato. We also support our vSockets on ESXi, AWS, or Azure natively, and then of course we could build IPsec tunnels. So you just pick those in there, put where you happen to be in the world. For whatever reason, I'm in Albania. I would then put my upstream, downstream bandwidth for my WAN interface. I could turn on a second one as well and take advantage of load balancing. A third I could even configure a little further down, take advantage of that. And then I give, like, say, a private IP range that lives behind that. That's all I need from a base configuration to get a site ready to go. I, of course, can provide way more configuration items if I need to and get into there and tweak those. But that's just the high-level aspect of things. And if I, say, plug the site in, I would get a notification under this bell icon that I had a new socket that was ready to be assigned. It would automatically update its software, and then I can assign it to one of these site locations that I pre-configured. And then it takes about 2 to 3 minutes. It's going to push the configuration out to that end device, and it'll bring it under management. right? That's how simple it is to bring a site online. And, you know, we can show this all day long. It demos really well on that aspect of things. A little more sophistication that we can get to on the network side, we have the ability to support up to 252 individual bandwidth queues. So what does that mean? That means I can set up a specific queue that throttles, say, YouTube to 1 megabit per second, or that I have a particular, you know, for my backup traffic, maybe I only limit that traffic when the line is congested, and then I'll have it use 5% of that link, right? So the best practices is to define these queues for my key applications and services. And then I head over to the network rules, and that's where I can assign applications or users or other things to those groups of bandwidth management queues. So I'm prioritizing the traffic, but then I can also do other interesting things. Because of our global backbone that connects all of our points of presence together, we can leverage those for applications, for example, right? So I have this rule for Salesforce. We use Salesforce as our CRM. Because we're a global company, it's actually hosted out of Frankfurt. As you might imagine, I don't have optimized access to Frankfurt from Bozeman, Montana. So I leverage the Cato backbone in the middle. I connect into my nearest POP, I ride over the Cato backbone, and then in this case, I've got it to route out of Frankfurt specifically to access Salesforce. So if I go to Salesforce, always risky doing a live demo of anything, of course, but you can see when I go to Salesforce, it's automatically in German because I'm coming out of Frankfurt, you know, just to show you that it's actually doing what we're saying it's doing. I could just as easily do that with what is my IP address. I have that rule set up to actually route that to Auckland, for instance, right? So any of our POP locations can be used, and you can specify multiple of them to optimize that actual application traffic for access. So not only am I now just not making a decision based upon maybe 2 internet links from my branch location over which one slightly performs better, I'm actually optimizing the middle aspect of that, giving a huge boost in performance, especially if you've got a customer that has maybe their west to east coast. And then if they especially get into the global avenue, we're second to none as part of a solution that we can provide just at the networking level. And that includes things like TCP acceleration and packet loss mitigation, which I won't get into. But those types of things that we can do, and there's a lot of power in this, but you can see how easily it is for you to develop a rule set and configure that just based upon things that you know and love. You don't have to build an access control list. You can very easily specify sources being sites or individual users or Active Directory users or whatever the use case is there. We have that full awareness capability, and then of course all of the awareness in the applications and the categories that go along with it. Okay, let's pivot over to the security side of things and look at what we can do from that aspect. So as far as security goes, we have at our underlying everything that we do, we have an internet firewall and a WAN firewall. And the internet firewall, that's anything that's bound for the internet. So in other parlance, secure web gateway is what you might have heard for that terminology, and that's exactly what this does. So it gives you the capability to filter based upon, I don't know, countries or individual categories that you want to actually block or maybe prompt for. You can even, of course, go through and specify specific applications that you want to have a particular rule set for. In my case, I have this corporate applications group that I've lumped some of the things that I use in there. But it's just doing things like you would expect. So in my case, I'm filtering out gambling. So if I try and go to PokerStars, for instance, it violates that policy, and I'm going to get this block page, right? As you can see, customizable to fit your company needs. But that gives you the capability to control. So anything that's coming into the Cato environment is going to run through this internet firewall, be filtered. We do this in a single pass for all elements of our traffic. So we don't take a penalty by sending it somewhere else to another appliance, another service. Our single pass cloud engine allows you to process not only the network side and make optimizations there, but also the security, and it does it in one time, okay? Pivoting a little bit more to the WAN firewall. So this is relating to controlling the firewall as a service, between locations or between remote users, and essentially what would be the private part of my network overall, I have the ability to control that. This firewall by default is empty. So unless I've explicitly configured a rule to allow that internal access, yes, the connectivity will be there, but I will not be able to access these different applications or services until I've explicitly configured it here. So if we use the term Zero Trust Network Access, or ZTNA, this is where we're configuring that. So we're saying if Haggard, my remote user, is coming in my case, I've granted him specific access to the alpha server, right? And he can SSH right into that server specifically. But you see, nobody else can, right? So that protection is there for everything that we do. So whether that's internet bound or whether that's between your site locations, right? We've got firewall capability to support all aspects of that, okay? Pivoting into a little bit of the advanced threat prevention capabilities. So we have our intrusion prevention system, or IPS, and this is looking at the traffic that's going on your network, whether that is between sites, whether that's to the internet or internet inbound, etc. It's all controlled and protected by our intrusion prevention system that is looking for threats on the network, right? So if there's a new exploit in a Microsoft product, for instance, and it's based upon a particular blueprint that we can map very easily, we can now provide protection and capability for your end customers. You see that it's as simple as enabling it because we're providing this as a service, right? So that advanced threat prevention capability does not require you to patch, understand the different exploits that are out there and decide which ones are important for your business. Cato is doing that for you and rolling it out in real time when necessary for those high priority exploits and protecting your environment overall, right? There's obviously some more configuration that you can do, geo restrictions, things of that nature that you can provide, but really you're turning the service on and taking advantage of it. It's that simple, right? Same goes for anti-malware. So think antivirus in the cloud, if you will. So anything that you're transferring across your network, we're going to take a look at it and decide if that's malware that you're trying to transfer. If it's not just normal malware, maybe it's a new threat, but it's using some key indicators that we can identify for, we call these zero-day threats, right? We have the ability to support that and make decisions on that based upon our next-gen anti-malware. Again, just like the IPS, you turn these on, you can do things like, let's say for some particular services that I'm leveraging, I don't want to inspect those, whatever the use case is. But underlying all of that is the ability for us to actually do inspection on that encrypted traffic, right? So if you can't inspect the encrypted traffic on your network, you're going to miss 95% of any security related events that are happening because the bad actors are encrypting their data today. It's free and cheap and easy to do. And so everything that's going to be happening from, everything from malware to exploits that are going on, if you do not have the ability to take a view into that, you're not going to see all of these threats that are happening in your network. And we can do TLS inspection on any or parts of your network. Again, you have the ability to choose what works in there. By the way, Costco tire appointments, for whatever reason, does not play well with TLS inspection. So that's one thing that you can leave out of the inspection as you deem fit. If you want to not say inspect finance or healthcare records, things of that nature, you can decide what makes sense from that policy standpoint. But again, we have that capability underlying everything, so that empowers our anti-malware and IPS engines and CASB and data loss prevention, and it gives us further capabilities in that space. Okay, so talking a little bit further, we've talked about high-level things. The firewalling is whether or not I'm going to allow an application to go or not. But I have the ability with our Cloud Access Security Broker capability to now get more granular on things. So if we look at, say, Rule 3, for instance, I've got one, I'm use Box as a file sharing service, but I've decided for my use, in this case, any user, it could be a specific set of users if I wanted to, but for any users, I'm allowing them to log into Box and they can download, but I'm not letting them upload, right? So now I have the capability at a very granular cloud application layer to control access to individual criteria or activities with that service overall, right? It's a very powerful way to lock things down. And again, because we have user awareness and application awareness, I can be very specific on how I define that. The other types of rules that you see we have in here are data control rules. So that's where our data loss prevention comes into play. In this case, I'm saying that for a particular set of users and a site, I want to make sure I built a profile that matches based upon credit card or social security number information, right? So let's say I'm running Slack and I'm trying to get a file out of here, right, that has some credit card information or social security numbers. And so I'm trying to upload that into Slack, right? Our data loss prevention is going to go ahead and block that from happening. I just I can't send that message, but meanwhile, that's being logged. It's actively blocked, as you just saw. And then we're also providing a view into those things here as part of our service overall, right? So if I get back to this monitoring tab, for instance, and I get to the DLP dashboard, right, I can see where I've hit those different rules and who's doing it, whatever, right? So this has given me a high level view of the types of things that are happening on my network. Even though it's actively preventing that from happening, I also have visibility into that as well, because we keep all of this event information as part of our solution, right? So events are stored for 6 months, as well as all network analytic data from there. And you can see, I can see a whole host of information where I was trying to use LinkedIn, Harry Potter was connecting an Active Directory. Here's the DLP profile that was blocking that specifically, and all hosts of information, right? So giving you a view into the things that your users are doing in your network, you can prevent that from happening. Let's say you want to stop source code from leaking or other proprietary information on your network, you have that control, and you can do it extremely easily, right? The configuration of this is very simple to set up. Even if you're not an expert in security overall, you could very easily define a profile based upon data types we already have. Like, so let us do the hard work of figuring out that that's credit card numbers. But you could just as easily define your own data types in there too, based upon dictionaries or keywords, or even build a regular expression to match those as well. Right. So the other thing that we do very well is provide a view into what's happening in your environment, both on the security side and the network side, right? So I can look at and see the types of things that are happening from threats on my network, just like I showed you already. And the others, I can dive in and see where those attacks are happening in the world, who's doing them. I see Iran on there, concerning. But I have a view into those things that are happening. But the same goes for the applications that I'm using in my environment as well, right? The Cloud Apps dashboard is giving me a view into the different applications I'm leveraging. I can, of course, build more filtering and rules based upon those apps that I know are on my network, or the ones I didn't know, like Zamanta. Ever heard of that? No, I haven't. But we can go in and see in our apps catalog what that application is, and see a little bit about it specifically, probably another ad platform specifically, right? So you have a view into these things. We provide all the analytics information in real time and over the long term. Again, I have 6 months of data on this, providing the convergence of networking and security together and doing it in a very simple and straightforward way that most anyone can come up to speed with. But that being said, we can also provide advanced services from our professional services team to help you in any aspect of your engagement. So that's given you a top level view of the Cato solution overall. I hope that was useful for you, and I'm going to turn it back over to the team.
Thanks, Paul. That was a fantastic demo. I really appreciate the time you took and the depth of visibility that we got into the Cato solution. I know we've had a couple of questions that have come in, and we have just a few minutes to cover those. So real quickly, I wanted to touch on a few, and I know this is one that comes up quite a bit, but to further clarify, the question is this an on-premise solution or a cloud service? Con, do you want to answer that one?
Absolutely. This is 100% a cloud service, a managed cloud service with 24/7 NOC and SOC support.
Perfect. I think a related question is how is the solution priced?
It is priced depending on your use cases and depending on the size of your organization. The two core components is based on the number of remote users that will be needed to access the system, and also the bandwidth at each site that will be needed to access the cloud application or the cloud service. And this is a subscription-based model, so it is based on recurring costs.
Perfect. And I'm going to squeeze in one more question before we wrap up. Does Cato provide professional services to help with deployment?
Absolutely. We have a subset of solutions. The nice thing about Cato is it is a cloud service, so it's fairly easy to onboard an organization, whether you're one site or whether you're 1,000 sites. But we do have site onboarding services. We have some basic onboarding services, but we also have custom onboarding services for organizations that require various different levels of integrations and application onboarding.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And with that, we are coming up against the end of our time. So I wanted to thank everybody again for being here today. Thanks to Con and Paul for your in-depth presentation and demo. And I wanted to say to our audience, if you are interested in taking the next steps and learning more about Cato Networks and whether or not SASE is right for you, I encourage you to reach out to Instant InfoSystems. The information is there on your screen. You can call us or email us. And we would be happy to talk with you, give you a free assessment of your current security posture to see if SASE is right for you. We also have a host of additional information and documentation from Cato that we would be happy to share with you. So we encourage you to reach out, and we appreciate you being here today.